Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Wednesday evening with something new, a gift book club, which we'll be doing on this amazing Access Consciousness publication book. Would you teach a fish to climb a tree? So, does any one of you on the call have come across this book, ever read it? If not, how does it get any better than this? You can grab a copy of this book either in paperback or you can buy it even on Kindle. I am using this Kindle version of the book, and this is a book about the X-Men, like particularly targeted for the X-Men kids. So are you aware of what do we refer to as X-Men in Access Consciousness? Okay, so X-Men are all those people and especially kids which are like who are have different kind of capacities. So in this reality, they are labeled as either ADD, ADHD, autistic, OCD, or some other name that they are given. But actually, their brains are different. Their way of thinking is different. Their perspective is different, and this reality is somehow trying to make them fit in, make them normal, while they are not. And so, this book is about a different perspective, and many of us are also X-Men, or we have at least some X-Men traits and capacities which we have not yet recognized, we are not aware of. And then this book gives us a different perspective about ourselves, about certain people in our lives, even if you do not have kids or you are not working with any kids. But this book was particularly written for parents, caretakers, teachers, people who work with these kids. The author of the the authors of the book are Anne Maxwell, Gary Douglas, and Dr. Dain Heer. Now, Anne Maxwell is she's a psychologist who has been working closely with these kids even before she started with her Access Consciousness, and then she had a different, like she developed a different perspective, a different awareness about how to how to be with these kids and tap into their capacities. So this book is all about that, and how much we can change the world if we can see the perspective of all the X-Men and also embrace our own X-Men capacities. So let me read some portions of the book, and you can always interrupt me, ask questions, and we can have some discussions as well. So, would you teach a fish to climb a tree? A different take on kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. Everybody is a genius. Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So this is a quote by, does anyone know who has said this?
Hello Tasneem ji, where we are reading?
So do you have this book? Would you teach a
Yeah.
fish to climb a tree? So
Yeah.
I'm on just like the starting of the book.
A world about labels.
नहीं, नहीं, just before, like where they have written about the authors and just before the gratitude. Okay, even if you don't find it, most of the people on this call, they don't have the book, Swati, so don't, just
Okay.
listen. Just be with the energy.
Yes.
You can read the book later.
Yeah.
So I just like said a quote. Is anyone aware of whose quote is it? I read it again. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. It is a quote from a genius, Albert Einstein. Okay, so with this, a word about labels. This is chapter 1, Swati. I'm starting with chapter 1, a word about labels. Don't define these children by their labels. You will cut off your receiving of what they have to give to you. Instead, ask a question. What is the gift they have that I am not receiving? By Gary Douglas. Now, something from Anne Maxwell, who is the who is the one who has authored this book with like inputs from Gary and Dr. Dain here. And it has become increasingly clear to me over the years I have spent working with kids and families that there are particular cultures of thinking or attitude with regard to the way people and especially kids should function. Those who don't function according to the rules and regulations in play around them are labeled by the advocates and promoters of those cultures. This tends to happen a great deal in educational and medical communities. So, what happens is there is a definition of normal that has been given by the educational and medical institutes के सभी को हमारी जो शिक्षा प्रणाली है और हमारी जो मेडिकल की जो लाइन है उन लोग ने सबने मिलके एक नॉर्मल की डेफिनेशन दी है कि नॉर्मल लोग नॉर्मल बच्चे कैसे रहेंगे, उनका आईक्यू कितना होना चाहिए, उनका ईक्यू कैसा होना चाहिए, उनके कितने जो पैरामीटर्स हैं, जो मेडिकल पैरामीटर्स हैं वो कैसे होने चाहिए। कोई भी उससे थोड़ा भी इधर से उधर गया तो मतलब वो ठीक नहीं है, वहां पे कोई प्रॉब्लम है। सो वी हैव बीन टॉट दैट एवरीवन एंड देन उनको सबको लेबल दिया जाता है ना कि ये एडीडी है, ये एडीएचडी है, ये बच्चा एक जगह बैठ नहीं सकता है, ये हाइपर एक्टिव है, ये क्लास में बैठता नहीं है, ये वो आंसर नहीं देता है जिसका जिसका जो कि क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है क्लास में। और वैसे ही लोगों के साथ में जो साइकोलॉजिकल कंडीशंस के बारे में कि ये इस तरह से सोचता है तो फिर मतलब ये बाइपोलर है, तो हर जगह लेबल्स अटैच हुए हैं। और वैसे ही एडीडी, एडीएचडी, ओसीडी और ऑटिज्म भी कुछ लेबल्स हैं जो उन बच्चों को दिए गए हैं जो कि एक पर्टिकुलर वे में फंक्शन नहीं कर पाते हैं, जो कि इस दुनिया में नॉर्मल कहा गया है। सो often the conclusion is reached that children who don't fit in need to be taught how to behave so they can learn to function as if they were normal and average and just like everyone else. The problem is that they are not normal and average. My point of view is that by asking them to be normal and average, we are doing two things. We are telling them that there is something wrong with them, and we are asking them to become someone they are not. And how times we have done it to ourselves कि हम दूसरों के जैसे नहीं हैं, हम वैसा नहीं भी करते हैं, या किसी और ने हमको कहा या हमने अपने बच्चों के बारे में ऐसा सोचा और फिर हमने सोचा कि हम में कोई खराबी है, हम में कोई प्रॉब्लम है जो कि सुधारी जानी ज़रूरी है, और be it our kids or be it ourselves. So everyone who is different from the most of the people from the herd, then we, in this reality, we label them. Labels evoke images, answers, and definitions, and nothing can be considered that doesn't fit within the confines of the labels. In other words, the labels define, and once one is labeled, he or she is always labeled. So, some of you remember how you were labeled as when you were kids. when you were small and you were labeled either as she is like na ye moti hai, yeah, she's intelligent, yeah, she's so sweet, और शीज ये तो तुम तो बुद्धू हो, स्टूपिड है, तुम्हारी बहन को देखो वो कितनी अच्छी है, या एंड देन यू कैरी दोज लेबल्स थ्रू आउट योर लाइफ, राइट? सो दोज लेबल्स स्टिक टू यू, आपके सिर पे लेबल लगा दिया जाता है और वो हमेशा वैसा ही रहता है। वैसे ही बच्चों के साथ भी होता है जो कि डिफरेंट है, उनको जब डायग्नोसिस के लिए ले जाया जाता है और उनको कोई भी एक लेबल लग जाता है कि ये एडीएचडी बच्चा है, ये ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है, तो देन दे आर लेबल्ड फॉर देयर लाइफ टाइम। सो इज इट ट्रूली काइंड टू देम? Some of the most commonly used labels are autism, OCD, ADD, and ADHD. In the medical community, all of these diagnoses are described in varying intensity from mild to severe. Autism spectrum disorders. There is a group of mental health diagnoses that fall under the generic category of autism spectrum disorders or ASD. These include autistic disorder, Asperger's syndrome, and pervasive development order. And these behaviors tend to be repetitive and can appear odd, and the severity of their symptoms range from those of highly functional people to individuals who are not able to speak or function in this reality. So, ASD or autism spectrum disorder is one such label. The other one is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It is a diagnosis that describes recurrent and persistent thought patterns and behaviors that are repetitive and ritualistic and cause enough distress that they can interfere with daily life. So, at this point of time, does any one of you have anyone who has been labeled in any of these categories? Your kids? Anyone you know of? ADD, ADHD, OCD, autism. Are you aware of what these disorders are as in this reality? Like, are you aware of what are they?
So one of my family, a child in our family, he is autistic. Yeah.
Okay, so he has
Yeah.
been labeled as autistic.
Yeah, he's.
One of my
So
patients.
now you can have a different perspective, and how much like you can make their parents look at that child from a different perspective.
Yeah. So they have to be willing to be that,
You like what I do is usually I have friends whose kids have have been labeled. I just ask them, why don't you read this book?
Yeah.
Hmm? And like I just invite them to like read the book and have it like listen from an expert. Because and Maxwell is someone who works with those kids.
Mhm.
So people listening from them, reading from like people who have actually worked, it gives them and my one of my best friend, my like no childhood buddy, her son was diagnosed with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And like I asked her to read this book, like she was crying, like she had never seen her child from that perspective, and it empowered her a lot for with like how to be with her kid, the child, how to communicate with him, how to see like what she was able to see, the capacities that she has two sons, and the elder one is normal as per this reality, and the younger one has Down syndrome. So she was also able to uh, mm, see the capacities as compared to his elder brother that this younger one has. How he does things differently, how more like more aware he is, and actually the difference. Instead of seeing him as something less than his elder brother. So it can be an invitation to also to parents and others. Uh, Most of you who have joined the call are either BAS facilitators or BAS practitioners. So you can invite them to this book club if you know of someone, so that they can listen to it and they can like know what is different that is available with their kids, a different possibility that is available, or and also you can uh, running their bars opens up something new in their universe, so you can offer them bar sessions also. Yeah. so so therefore because we don't have someone, I'm like I was just wondering, should I read about all the details of what this like OCD kids are about, and okay. So I won't read much about what OCD, ADD, ADHD, and all these things are. I'll move ahead. ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism are among the labels that can sentence a child to being thought of in a certain way. These labels are known to describe disabilities, and kids with those diagnoses are defined and viewed as disabled or handicapped. It does not seem as if there is room for any other way of thinking about them once that judgment has been made. I'm aware of how hopeless it can be for those who do not fit into the culture and who are branded and classified as disabled, impaired, or defective. This also applies to the parents of these kids who would like so much for their children to have happy, successful lives. There are, however, more and more stories in the popular press about kids who were diagnosed with autism at an early age and whose parents were told they would never read, talk, or relate to people. These kids are now in their early teens and are doing undergrad and graduate level classes in major universities. What is the common thread in those stories? It is the parents who didn't buy the labels that were placed on their kids and instead recognized that so much more was possible than what the expert told them. And there is like this is a movie, could be there might be a book also, but I have watched this movie, Temple Grandin. It's a real story that this Temple Grandin, this lady is still there. You can Google about her. Yeah. If you are interested, it's about an autistic girl. And her mother refused to buy in this, whatever doctors told her, that she would never be able to study in a normal school, and how she raised her, and she became like she is a research scientist. And the another like some of you might have seen it. It's like about Bhumit, please let your relatives know about this. This is The Good Doctor. It's a web series on Netflix. Has anyone saw it?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So it's about an autistic child who goes on to become a surgeon. And
Yes.
yeah, so and how he deals, like he's able to see the whole anatomy and everything inside the human body in a much different way. Bhumit, you have to tell them, yeah, about these two movies. Like Temple Grandin is a movie, probably it's on Prime Video or somewhere, I don't remember, you can find out. And The Good Doctor is a series on Netflix.
And also, there's a
I
real
do.
life story about an Olympic swimmer from India. She is a highly autistic child. She's, I think, 15 years old now. She has never won a silver medal. She has only one silver medal because the rest of it is all gold.
Oh,
And
wow.
she is the one, yes, she is one of those. If you look at her now, you will see like, oh my God, look at this obese kid. But she has won India the most
Do you
gold
remember her name?
medals.
Down syndrome or something.
And she was classified as highly autistic. So ASD pay, she was quite high, speak much. But when she swims, she is unbeatable. She had swam from Sri Lanka to India in a storm.
Gia.
Gia. Gia.
Yeah, her name is Gia.
Gia. That's right.
I just googled it and found out.
Oh, okay. I have this guy in my hand, so I can't.
Wow.
Uh,
So is there a movie or something about also Gia?
I don't know about.
You him saying
Movies, yeah.
13-year autistic girl set swimming record.
Yes.
Yes, so the parents who did not buy into the lies that were told to them by others that their kids would be disabled for their lives, actually they could create a different possibility. So, what invitation can you be for all those people who have these kids, or like you are aware of them and what you can invite them to? So, okay, these parents encouraged their children to follow their interests and do what they loved to do, no matter how odd it may have seemed. A particularly inspiring story was told by a mother whose autistic son just wanted to play with shapes and shadows. He was failing in his special ed program, where he was being forced to do things he didn't want to do. She found that the more she encouraged him to do what he enjoyed, the more his shell cracked open. And when she followed his interests and made resources available to him just to support those interests, he began to talk and to thrive. When he was 3 years old, she was told that he would never talk. At 11 years of age, he enrolled in a university and began studying mathematics. Sulochana, you wrote that your brother was diagnosed with bipolar. Uh, yeah, so bipolar is a like more of a psychological condition. They don't fall in this category, but still, like I would suggest that you have, if you haven't watched, watch this movie. It's again like a person with a beautiful mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful mind is about a person, like again a Nobel Prize winner mathematician, real life story. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and he went on to win the Nobel Prize, and how he was not actually bipolar, he was schizophrenic. So
Okay.
bipolar, Chandani, is a condition where people are like, are you, most of us are aware of this depression where there is a low period, है ना? And then bipolar are like they are on the two ends of the polarity. At some times they are like extremely feeling low, and there are other periods where in their life where they are hyperactive,
Like mania.
like maniac. Depression and mania, they keep swinging between these two ends. Therefore they call it bipolar. They are between two poles, two polarities. Yeah. And again, that is a label. Sulochana, that is a label.
Mm,
Daddy
okay.
says that every
But
one of us is bipolar.
okay.
Then, chapter 2. a new perspective. So in chapter 1 we talked, like we got like saw about all the labels that are put by this reality, and how those labels limit us in that same box that we are put in, that we cannot be beyond that. If a child is labeled as autistic, how disabled life he would be living. If they are ADHD, they can never study like normal kids. They cannot go to the same schools as normal schools. Autistic kids, and then how uh, like people who did not buy into those labels, actually they excelled in their lives. They have been living extremely successful lives. Now, a new perspective. What if there is nothing wrong with these kids? What if they are just different? Gary Dain. And my first job out of graduate school in 1991 as a child and family therapist was at a residential treatment center for kids who were labeled with psychiatric disorders. These were kids who were unable to function at home, in school, or in community, and had failed multiple times in less restrictive settings. In the United States, residential treatment centers are considered to be almost the end of the road for kids. The only places further down that road are jails or state mental hospitals. There are two ways for kids to be at the center. In the residential program, meaning they lived in one of the residential units 24 by 7 and attended the highly specialized school program as well, or in the day treatment program, which meant they lived off campus and attended the highly specialized school program during the school week. I was hired as a psychotherapist in both the residential and day treatment programs, and I worked with kids between the ages of 3 and 80. My specialty was the younger ones. So, uh, at least in countries like USA, Australia, European countries, there are these kind of centers. They have at least some help available where people can put their kids in the full-time residential program as a hostel, as a boarding school. They leave them over there, or they can go to a special school, a special daycare kind of a uh, program where they can go and mm, learn at least all the occupational therapy that is given to them, so that they can take care of themselves and like do at least some do some mundane jobs to earn their livings. So that is the whole purpose of these programs. And Maxwell as a graduate, she worked with both of these kind of institutes. The kids who were diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism were the ones who presented challenges of a different sort to the staff. Many were in constant motion, even when sitting in chairs. They laughed at all the seemingly wrong times and blurted out answers but couldn't explain how they got them, even when the answers were correct. The behavioral program had little to no effect on these kids. They were viewed as disrespectful, oppositional, difficult, and hard to work with. Others, who were more severely disabled, seemed pretty checked out and shut down. When they did respond, they seemed to be reaching to something not apparent to the rest of us. Sometimes they became engaged with what appeared to be little to no provocation. Their emotional outbursts had an intensity about them that straightened my spine. So there were two kind of kids she's talking about, and most of them they couldn't be labeled, like they were not, like as per this reality, they were either not functioning correctly, they were behaviorally, they were not appropriate, their behaviors were inappropriate, and some of them who were severely, like they were totally, they they had cut themselves off from other people. They were totally checked out, and they had like severe emotional outbursts. There was a wide range of people on staff at the center, and they came from many different disciplines. My favorites were the magical ones who saw the kids for who they were, not as the labels that had been given. They were the people who gave the kids the benefit of the doubt. They knew the kids were doing the best they could with the tools they had. And these were the people the kids liked best. One of those magical people was a woman named Naomi, who was a specialist in the school program. When I met Naomi, I was fresh out of grad school and I felt a particular kinship for kids who had difficulties concentrating and focusing. I asked her about kids with ADD and ADHD. She said it is like they have hundreds of television screens in their heads, and each screen is tuned into a different channel. I read that again to get to like this was like mind blowing for me to give that what happens, like how do they see things, what goes on in their minds. The it is like they have hundreds of television screens in their heads, and each screen is tuned into a different channel. The volume is turned up and they don't have a remote to turn it down as switch or switch all the screens to the same channel. They can't help it. So you can you imagine how much at the same time they are hearing, seeing in their heads. Hundreds of TV channels going on simultaneously in their head, each of them tuned to a different channel. तो एक जगह पे म्यूजिक चल रहा है, एक जगह पे मूवी चल रही है, कहीं पे कुछ चल रहा है, कहीं पे कुछ चल रहा है. And there that is how there is so much going on in their world simultaneously. That made sense to me. At times it seemed like the kids tried so hard to focus and concentrate, yet they seemed utterly incapable of doing so. I felt a connection with them because I too have always had several things going on in my head at the same time. And how many of us have the same capacity? Too many things going on at the same time in our minds, right? As a child, I was always being told to pay attention. I would often wonder what was wrong with me that I couldn't do that. In the program, there was an emphasis on medications, and great value was placed on being able to sit still and listen. It was always clear when the meds went too far in the opposite direction and the kids focused on what they were doing to the exclusion of everything around them, and, for example, colored so intently that the colored markers went through the paper. So, if you have ever met an ADHD person, they are extremely, like, they would seem extremely hyperactive. They cannot keep on doing the same thing, like they cannot sit still. Even if they are sitting, their legs would keep moving. कुछ हिलता रहेगा. And people would think that they are not concentrating, इनका ध्यान नहीं है, कुछ और कहीं पे और ध्यान है. Something they cannot and they cannot keep doing the same things. मतलब आधी कुछ चीज इधर करी, फिर उधर करा, फिर इधर किया. And like kids also, the kids would never be able to sit still in the class, and in the parents teacher meeting, the teacher would always complain, आपका बच्चा तो उठ के इधर उधर चला जाता है, दूसरे बच्चों से बात कर रहा है. They are not sitting still at the same place in the class. So that is the ADHD capacity that they have. Now, when they are given medication so that they keep doing the same things over and over, they would keep coloring the same paper to the extent that the paper would be torn out. So it does it give, like, do them any good? actually it takes them to another extreme. Hmm. With heavy doses of medications, it seemed as if the kids became flat. Their sparkle was gone. Naomi had some suggestions that worked with the kids. For example, she told me, if you can't say what needs to be said in 5 words or less, they won't hear you. So their attention span is so short that whatever you have to tell them or show them and or communicate to them, you have to make it like in say 5 words. So this is one of the tips for the parents as well. Give them short sentences, like not very elaborate stories. How many of you get like just bored when people are telling you their stories, you want to run away? And imagine those kids, like उनसे और भी stories नहीं सुनाई जा रही, आपने दो पूरे sentences भी बोले, मतलब 20-25 words बोल दिए, तो उनके लिए बहुत हो गया. So just talk to them to the point, give them just the instruction that is required to be given in not more than 5 words. Where was I reading? For example, okay, so if you can't say what needs to be said in 5 words or less, they won't hear you. It was true. Their eyes would glaze over at anything more. However, as useful as Naomi's suggestions were, they weren't enough to make a real or lasting difference with the kids. What she didn't tell me, and what neither of us knew at the time, is that their minds moved at the speed of light. Words were not their preferred form of communication because words were too painfully slow, laborious, and difficult. Although I did not know this way back then, I now realize that they communicated primarily energetically. So, energetic or telepathic communication is extremely fast and it works wonders with these kids. Fast forward to 20 years later when I met Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. He put into words what I had known secretly about these kids for so long, but had never given myself permission to acknowledge, as it flew in the face of what was considered real and true at the time. When he said that kids who have been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and or autism become angry when they are told to use words because words slow them down so much, a great sense of release washed through me. Memories of so many different kids throwing tantrums at the center and later in my private practice came back to me. I recalled the looks of utter disdain that crossed their faces when they were told to use their words or when someone said, I didn't hear you. It made so much sense to me because these kids do communicate differently. So these kids would like how many of you mothers over here have kids who don't want to write? My son had extreme problems. मैं लिखूंगा नहीं, बस मैं जाके नहीं लिखूंगा एग्जाम के पेपर में. His favorite tantrum, he would know, he would like solve all the like maths का problem है, बिना लिखे मैं जवाब दे दूंगा पर लिखूंगा नहीं, स्टेप्स नहीं लिखूंगा, मुझे स्टेप्स मत लिखने को बोल. So these are like he had ADHD traits. He was extremely intelligent, but then this was like that actually slows them down. They want to go very fast. And they are fast. Their minds are extremely sharp and extremely fast. And this reality, the ways of this reality asks them to slow down, which is like very painful for them. When Gary asked questions like, what if there is nothing wrong with these kids and what if they were just different? I thought to myself, finally, someone who gets it. What if kids with all those labels could be seen as who they are, not as who they aren't? What could that change? Gary's comments invited me to begin asking questions like, what else is possible here that we are not looking at? Rather than how can we make this child fit in? What if different is different? Not right, not wrong, just different. These kids aren't the same as other people. They don't have emotions the way other people do. They think differently. They don't understand why people move so slowly and pretend not to know what they actually do know. They have a different way of looking at the world. And what if they actually have special talents and abilities? A 10-year-old boy who had been diagnosed with OCD was in my office the other day. He feels so different from other kids and so wrong. We were talking in a relaxed way and enjoying ourselves. Then I noticed a subtle change in his body. He looked at me, looked at the telephone on the desk behind me, looked at me again, and then the phone rang. So now this OCD kid was aware, even before the phone rang, he was aware that there was a call coming in. I raised my eyebrows and smiled at him, and he smiled back. You knew it was going to ring, didn't you? I asked. He giggled. Yes. Awesome, I replied. What if we could see what they see rather than try to get them to see what we see? I read that again. It's such a powerful statement. What if we could see what they see rather than try to get them to see what we see? So, actually, we want them to make like ourselves, make them look at our perspective rather than trying to see their perspective. So, what if we could start seeing with their eyes how they see the world? What change could that create? What is created by not acknowledging the abilities these kids have? I believe it causes them to see themselves as invisible, not deserving, unworthy, not good enough, defective, weird, and wrong. What if that is the harm that we do to kids who are diagnosed with the labels ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism? They don't see the world the same way we do, and when we won't see through their eyes, that creates difficulties for them. We need to see what they see rather than try to get them to get them to see things our way. So, do you want me to read further? It's 8:45.
We can read one more.
Yes, please
We can read.
continue.
Is it interesting?
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting.
Exactly, yes, it is. So, chapter 3, what if your children are perfect? And what if each of one of us, like all the mothers or people who have niece, nephews, anyone, or if all these children, all the children that you teach in your schools, colleges, anywhere, I believe all of them are just, they are perfect. What if your children are perfect, even if they have ADHD, OCD, ADD, autism, or something else going on? Dr. Dain here. Now, Gary says, Dain and I have had the opportunity to work with some children who have been labeled with these so called disabilities. Initially, we tried to deal with these conditions from the point of view that something was wrong with the kids, and we tried to figure out how we could handle their disability. However, in the process of working with a number of great kids, we have seen that they have many abilities, talents, and gifts. that go unrecognized by teachers, parents, and people in the medical and psychological community. People tend to function from the point of view that there is something wrong with these children because they don't learn the way the rest of us do. The reality is that they pick things up in a totally different manner, and we need to step up and find out how they learn, not try to teach them using methods that might have worked for us, but definitely don't work for them. So they get things in a different way, in a faster way. And what if we could start looking at how they learn things rather than trying to teach them using our own probably outdated methods. We would like to re-reference the point of view that they are special needs children. They are actually special talents children. So in this reality, people call them, these children have special needs. Actually, they have special talents. We call them X-Men after the Marvel comic superhero team composed of mutants with an X gene who use their extra power and abilities for the benefit of humanity. So, has any one of you seen that X-Men series with your kids or just for yourself? If not, please watch it. At least a couple of them. Look at their abilities, how they transform from one form to another. They have this mutant like capacities. They are different. They have this extra gene, and these kids have that. Therefore, they call them as X-Men. Okay. For us, it is a term of affection. The X-Men are here with us on the planet to make waves. They are a mutation that is an expansion of the species, but they are being looked at as though they are a limitation. We don't believe that is true. I'll read that again. The X-Men are here with us on the planet to make waves. They are a mutation that is an expansion of the species, but they are being looked at as though they are a limitation. We don't believe that is true. Actually, Carrie, number of times he has said that X-Men are the future of this world. They will bring in lot of consciousness and they will create a different future. Yes, Chandani, you are a big fan of X-Men because you are an X-Men. Aren't you, Chandni? We would like to unlock the abilities these kids have because it is our perception that if they were given the opportunity, they might be able to change many of the things on our planet that will turn into disasters in the future. So if they remain unchanged, if those things remain unchanged, they will turn into disasters. Only X-Men can change them and create a different future for the planet. We ask that you don't see your kids as wrong, no matter what they have been labeled. Look at your kids not from the wrongness of them, but from the rightness of them. When you do this, you can create a completely different world for yourself, for them, and for everyone on the planet. We hope you will see that you have an extraordinary opportunity to create a more conscious world. You can create a place in which people begin to see the ability and the greatness these kids are. So what different possibility can you create in the world by just changing your perspective for these kids? Yeah. And inviting their parents, their guardians for this different possibility as well. So we'll stop here for today. We've done till chapter 3. We'll continue to read from chapter 4 next time. I will not record the call from next time because it's access doesn't allow reading more than 30% of the books and recording them. We'll just do the book club without the recordings. I have recorded it for today and I'll share the recording. Please, please, please share it with people who may like benefit, and their kids actually would benefit by listening to these. Okay, so invite them, and people also who have either grown up but then they are always in their wrongness because of any of these labels that have been given to them. It could open up a different possibility for them as well. So like be an invitation for all of them, and what catalysts of consciousness and propagators of consciousness we can be on the planet Earth that we have not yet acknowledged. And everything that does not allow you to be and do that, will you please now destroy and create it all times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pop, all night shots, boys, bobats, and beyonds. So we'll close the call for now. Thank you everyone for joining in. Good night.
You.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye,
Good
everyone.
night.
Bye. Good night.
Right. Thank you.